Well, good morning from cold, snowy Idaho here. Hey, Cameron and I are going to go fly the Cub later. And so we ran out to do a little preheating. I know there's a million different ways to preheat an airplane. Super simple, has worked really good for me. I stole this bad boy out of my wife's cabinet. Have used it for years. And works really well. So I'll show you what I do, where I put it, how it works. All right, Continental 0200, right? All I do is tuck it right in there, turn the hairdryer on for a few hours. Now, remember, you don't have to get an engine piping hot or anything. And when you do, that actually attracts more moisture. We want to keep moisture out of the engine, right? So all you need to do is just get them warm to the touch, barely just lukewarm, and then they fire right up, okay? The other thing, you really need to understand how your primer system works on whichever engine you have to know the best way for cold starts. Now, these small Continentals prime right there to the spider, okay? So you don't want to be pumping a ton of fuel with the primer in there. You end up with a backfire, and you'll end up with a fire. So what I do on cold starts is I do one stroke with the primer. Okay, then I either flick the prop through by hand, and that pulls fuel up into the cylinders or probably just up into the intake runners, you know. I don't exactly know how far it goes. And then I'll pull one, load the barrel, and if I hand prop it, and I'll try to show you that later today, it'll fire first blade. I just run this primer in, and it runs it on the primer, and then the engine starts, even when it's really cold. Okay, so that's quite a bit different than like the 360 here in the Decathlon. See, the primer lines go right into the cylinder. So this is a different because it's fuel injected, right? So just know where your primer lines run, so you end up starting with the proper procedure, less risk of fire. And try to show you that here later when we fire it up. All right, one other thing I've been really wanting to talk about as I watch people going into cold season starting their airplanes, a lot of 470s, 320s, 360s, is I see a lot of people pumping the throttle. And with an accelerator pump motor, man, that opens you up to a fire. So think about where your fuel is going. And if you aren't going to use your primer to start it, which should put the fuel in the right place in most engines, right into the cylinder, if you're going to use your throttle, only pump the throttle when the propeller's turning, sucking the fuel where it's supposed to go. And then that'll basically eliminate your chance of fire. You ready? Okay, one shot of prime. Mags are off. I can hear fuel in the intake. Mags are on. Throttle's cracked. And we got oil pressure.